Verses 30 to 35. This religious solemnity of which we have here an account comes in somewhat surprisingly in the midst of the history of the wars of Canaan. After the taking of Jericho and Ai, we should have expected that the next news would be of their taking possession of the country, the pushing on of their victories in other cities, and the carrying of the war into the bowels of the nation, now that they had made themselves masters of these frontier towns. But here a scene opens of quite another nature. The camp of Israel is drawn out into the field, not to engage the enemy, but to offer sacrifice, to hear the law read, and to say amen to the blessings and the curses. Some think this was not done till after some of the following victories were obtained which were read of, ch 10 and 11. But it should seem by the maps that Shechem, near to which these two mountains Gerizim and Ebal were, was not so far off from Ai, but that when they had taken that they might penetrate into the country as far as those two mountains, and therefore I would not willingly admit a transposition of the story, and the rather because, as it comes in here, it is a remarkable instance of the zeal of Israel for the service of God and for his honor. Though never was war more honorable, more pleasant, or more gainful, nor ever was war more sure of victory, or more necessary to a settlement, for they had neither houses nor lands of their own till they had won them by the sword, no, not Joshua himself, yet all the business of the war shall stand still, while they make a long march to the place appointed, and there attend this solemnity. God appointed them to do this when they should have got over Jordan, and they did it as soon as possibly they could, though they might have had a colorable pretense to put it off. Note, we must not think to defer our covenanting with God till we are settled in the world, or must any business put us by from minding and pursuing the one thing needful. The way to prosper is to begin with God. It is an instance of the care of God concerning his faithful servants and worshippers. Though they were in an enemy's country, as yet unconquered, yet in the service of God they were safe, as Jacob when in this very country he was going to Bethel to pay his vows. The terror of God was upon the cities round about. General 35:5. Note, when we are in the way of duty God takes us under his special protection. Twice Moses had given express orders for this solemnity, once do. 11:29-30, where he seems to have pointed to the very place where it was to be performed, and again do. 27:2, etc. It was a federal transaction. The covenant was now renewed between God and Israel upon their taking possession of the land of promise, that they might be encouraged in the conquest of it, and might know upon what terms they held it, and come under fresh obligations to obedience. In token of the covenant, they built an altar, and offered sacrifice to God, v. 30:31, in token of their dedication of themselves to God, as living sacrifices to his honor, in and by a mediator, who is the altar that sanctifies this gift. This altar was erected on Mount Ebal, the mount on which the curse was put, do 11:29, to signify that there, where by the law we had reason to expect a curse, by Christ's sacrifice of himself for us and his mediation we have peace with God. He has redeemed us from the curse of the law by being made a curse for us. Gal 3:13. Even where it was said, by the curse, you are not my people, there it is said, through Christ the altar, you are the children of the living God. The curses pronounced on Mount Ebal would immediately have been executed if atonement had not been made by sacrifice. By the sacrifices offered on this altar they did likewise give God the glory of the victories they had already obtained. Now that they had had the comfort of them, in the spoils of Ai, it was fit that God should have the praise of them. And they also implored his favor for their future success, for supplications as well as thanksgivings were intended in their peace offerings. The way to prosper in all that we put our hand to is to take God along with us, and in all our ways to acknowledge him by prayer, praise, and dependence. The altar they built was of rough unhewn stone, according to the law, Ex 20:25, for that which is most plain and natural, and least artful and affected, in the worship of God, he is best pleased with. Man's device can add no beauty to God's institutions. They received the law from God, and this those must do that would find favor with him, and expect to have their offerings accepted, for, if we turn away our ear from hearing the law, our prayers will be an abomination. When God took Israel into covenant he gave them his law, and they, in token of their consent to the covenant, subjected themselves to the law. Now hear. The law of the 10 Commandments was written upon stones in the presence of all Israel, as an abridgment of the whole, v. 32. This copy was not graven in the stone, as that which was reserved in the ark, that was to be done only by the finger of God. It is his prerogative to write the law in the heart. But the stones were plastered, and it was written upon the plaster. It was written, that all might see what it was that they consented to, and that it might be a standing remaining testimony to posterity of God's goodness in giving them such good laws, and a testimony against them if they were disobedient to them. It is a great mercy to any people to have the law of God in writing, and it is fit that the written law should be exposed to common view in a known tongue, that it may be seen and read of all men. The blessings and the curses, the sanctions of the law, were publicly read, and the people, we may suppose, according to Moses' appointment, said Amen to them, v. 33, 34. The auditory was very large. The greatest prince was not excused. The elders, officers, and judges, are not above the cognizance of the law, but will come under the blessing or the curse, according as they are or are not obedient to it, and therefore they must be present to consent to the covenant and to go before the people therein. The poorest stranger was not excluded. Here was a general naturalization of them, as well the stranger as he that was born among them was taken into covenant. This was an encouragement to proselytes, and a happy presage of the kindnesses intended for the poor Gentiles in the latter days. The tribes were posted, as Moses directed, 6 towards Gerizim and 6 towards Ebal. And the ark in the midst of the valley was between them, for it was the ark of the covenant, and in it were shut up the close rolls of that law which was copied out and shown openly upon the stones. The covenant was commanded, and the command covenanted. The priests that attended the ark, or some of the Levites that attended them, after the people had all taken their places, and silence was proclaimed, pronounced distinctly the blessings and the curses, as Moses had drawn them up, to which the tribes said Amen, and yet it is here only said that they should bless the people, for the blessing was that which was first and chiefly intended, and which God designed in giving the law. If they fell under the curse, that was their own fault. And it was really a blessing to the people that they had this matter laid so plainly before them, life and death, good and evil. He had not dealt so with other nations. The law itself also containing the precepts and prohibitions was read, v. 35, it should seem by Joshua himself, who did not think it below him to be a reader in the congregation of the Lord. In conformity to this example, the solemn reading of the law, which was appointed once in 7 years, due 31:10, 11, was performed by their king or chief magistrate. It is here intimated what a general publication of the law this was. Every word was read, even the minutest precepts were not omitted, nor the most copious abridged, not one iota or tittle of the law shall pass away, and therefore none was, in reading, skipped over, under pretense of want of time, or that any part was needless or not proper to be read. It was not many weeks since Moses had preached the whole book of Deuteronomy to them, yet Joshua must now read it all over again. It is good to hear twice what God has spoken once, PS 62:11, and to review what had been delivered to us, or to have it repeated, that we may not let it slip. Every Israelite was present, even the women and the little ones, that all might know and do their duty. Note: masters of families should bring their wives and children with them to the solemn assemblies for religious worship. All that are capable of learning must come to be taught out of the law. The strangers also attended with them, for wherever we are, though but as strangers, we should improve every opportunity of acquainting ourselves with God and His holy will.